So tell me about falling in love with the Cubs. I know your dad's from Illinois. He's been a Cubs fan. I was probably the same as him. Grew up watching the Cubs on WGN and Harry, and it just
Yeah.
became such a part of my life. And so, anyone that knows me knows I love the Cubs. How did you fall in love with the Cubs?
I didn't at first. I mean, you could say that it started when I was really young. My parents like to remind me that there was a point in my life when I was probably 3 years old when I'd wake up and I'd go wake them up, and I'd have them go out into the backyard with me and just from the crack of dawn start playing ball, or I'd have my dad turn on the Kerry Wood 20 strikeout game, or
Oh,
something
nice.
like yeah, something like that, and um, I would say that's probably when it first got ingrained in my subconscious mind, um, I just loved baseball. I just loved different players who played the game for the longest time, and it wasn't until I was probably like 11 or 12 that my dad was like, "Hey, the Cubs are about to be really good. They're in rebuild mode and whatever, and this is your last chance to jump on the bandwagon. So you either come aboard or you don't." And I decided to, and that's not to forget that I was a big Alfonso Soriano fan, a big Aramis Ramirez fan. Obviously, Javy Báez when he got up there, and that whole group of younger guys. At that time. But yeah, I would say I probably it was just probably hearing enough of my dad being like, "All right, man, your time's almost up." Like, so I would say that, but I think still to this day, I even though I was a Cubs fan, I always still just appreciated like baseball players who I wanted to like on the field.
Right, right. What was it like when the Cubs won the World Series at your house? How stoked was your dad?
Yeah, it was actually just me and my dad in the house when it happened. I remember he went to one of the games. I want to say it was like game 4 or something at Wrigley, and or maybe it might have been the NLDS or CS or something. I don't quite remember, but I was in my freshman year, I think, and it was just me and my dad in the townhome we were living in. And, I just remember him jumping up and down, and I'm exposing him here, but he was just bawling, and but looking back at that now, it actually makes a lot of sense to me. The emotion, I've seen a lot of Cubs fans up close and personal now, having done uh, Cubs convention and whatnot, and
Right.
like the fact that this many people already have a really good idea of who's in their farm system is really cool to me. But again, it makes sense. Like I think Cubs fandom is super different than a lot of other places that you'll ever go, and my dad shared a lot of memories, I'm sure, with his family and with my grandfather, who I actually never met. He, I'm sure, was the one that got my dad into the Cubs area, and so I think you could just see that them winning meant a whole lot more to a lot of that city than just a World Series. It felt like to me, what it looked like was that the Cubs fans felt like they had won too, and I think that it's a good place to be if you're an organization.
Yeah, right. How was his reaction, and what was your reaction when you got traded to the Cubs?
I never saw his reaction. I was in the car and I was going to meet them and my agent for lunch. Um, and we had no idea. Like I wasn't in any trade talks really. There was no, because it was the last day of the deadline, and it was my best friend. He was in town in Florida when I was rehabbing, and it was his birthday weekend, and um, I had no plans of packing my stuff up a couple days later, but um, I ended up getting to lunch after I got a phone call and didn't really believe it. I didn't quite believe it till I got to Arizona, but I heard from my mom that he had his moment in private. He didn't quite let me in on that, but yeah.